Welcome back to the show.
Welcome back to the show.
And now, your hosts of the Card Subject to Change podcast, the For Frequency's Sake Tag Team Champions of the World, the Wizard CZ, and Never Wrong, Nick Bull.
Hello, one and all. Welcome back to another exciting edition of the Card Subject to Change podcast, the podcast by the fan for the fan. We are powered by Low Pies Pizza, built by Durham Remodeling, colored by Ryan Allison Tattoo, and protected by Jared Zook of Country Financial. This is Card Subject to Change. If you like talking wrestling with other wrestling fans, wrestlers, people in the business, this is the place to be. I am your host, Never Wrong Nick Bull. Of course, I'd be remiss if I did not mention my tag team partner. This is a two-man operation. But this guy wears my co-host wears many hats. Of course, the most important one is the Wizard hat. We are co-champs of the For Frequency's Sake Tag Team Champions. He is the one. He is the only. He is the Wizard CZ. Wiz, how you doing, bud?
Man, I got back from the gym. I'm feeling good. Got some errands run. Don't have to go out in this cold again today. I'm happy about that. And do not adjust your screens. You are not seeing double. We are back for a second edition of Card Subject to Change today. Special double shot weekend. And we've got another guest. We are going to get to know him a little bit, and we're going to talk about APW's upcoming Winter Brawl Classic. Let me bring him in. He is the absolute pro wrestling open weight champion. He is the big picture. Sir, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Good. Doing good. Welcome to the show.
Excellent. Thank you for joining us. I mean, it's too cold outside to do anything, so you may as well do a podcast, right?
Sure.
I love having first-time guests on the show. I honestly met you moments before we went on the air, but this is great because this is just it fortifies my this notion that I have that wrestling just brings everybody together somehow, some way. Wrestling is this highway, and everybody just kind of blends onto it. So, big picture, why professional wrestling? What was it that brought you in, and what is it that's kept you here?
The thing that brought me in was just a happenstance, a random occurrence. I just happened to be watching television, and I witnessed a Impact Pro Wrestling commercial, company here out of Iowa. The first time I saw it, I was just kind of like floored. Didn't know what I was really seeing. I was like, you can go somewhere and actually learn how to do this. And I just was kind of mesmerized by it. And I didn't get the number on the first viewing of the commercial. So I waited all week, didn't turn the channel, didn't turn the TV off, had my pen and paper ready to go. Same time slot next week, commercial played again. I got the number. I made the phone call. Took a journey up to Algona, Iowa, met Travis Shillington, TS Aggressor, and that would have been summer of 2007, and that was the beginning of it.
So almost 18 years in the business. Yeah. That's a milestone. We have SCW Pro and the Black and Brave Academy in our backyard. Know a lot of veterans that have been in that long or longer. So it's always cool to hear stories from people who have been around for a while. Were you a wrestling fan before you joined?
Absolutely. I watched a lot of both WWF and WCW growing up. It was just routine to go to my best friend Kyle's house after school and play Sega, watch WWF tapes, and just living the life, Definitely was hooked on it when it was at the height of it on on cable, when it was the Monday Night Wars and all of that. So yeah, it was so large in my mind. I had never considered it as an actual, it was so big. I never thought it was a thing that I could actually go and do until that one day I saw that commercial. But yeah, absolutely huge fan. Definitely, like a lot of people, I would throw my brothers around or, hook up with the friends and go in the backyard and break some stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, you've got these larger than life characters on your screen. You never think, well, how do I get to do that? You
Yeah.
don't think you're going to be there. Were you? I got to ask. You mentioned the Attitude Era. That's right in my wheelhouse. Were you a WCW guy or a WWF guy?
Pretty even, but I might have, if I'm being perfectly honest, which maybe get a little not a popular opinion, but I lean a little closer to WCW. If I'm being perfectly honest, I would probably be a little more just for my fandom being. Kane was probably my favorite, but WCW had, I loved Sting. I loved Diamond Dallas Page. Obviously, when the NWO was going on, I was as hooked as anybody was on that. La Parka, the Luchadors. So I think ever so slightly, just a hair towards WCW.
We're chatting here with the Big Picture on the Card Subject to Change podcast. He is Absolute Pro Wrestling's open weight champion. We're going to talk a little more about Absolute Pro Wrestling and their show coming up just a little bit later on. We're just beginning to start to get the picture from the Big Picture. No pun intended there. We're talking about what we liked as wrestling.
Intend the pun. Intend the pun. I say intend the pun.
Intend the pun. I like it. I was going to ask you, you were talking about WCW stuff and the people you liked. I want to ask you two questions. Because CZ and I, we love Sting as well. But can you give us your best Shivani doing, "It's Sting"?
I can't do a Shivani. I probably got all kinds of impressions, but no Shivani impression.
No, that's okay. Anyway, what matches do you like to go back and watch? You mentioned you like Sting and some of in the Luchadors. I always loved the WCW mid card during Nitro. I loved the TV title picture and all that stuff. Who are guys that you were drawn to watching? Like Sting. You said Sting. Any big matches or moments you remember with Sting? Like when you say his name, it's like, oh, that's what the first thing I think of.
I mean, anytime he dropped down from the rafters, that was just about the coolest thing. You're going to talk about that almost all week at school.
No kidding. I mean, that was revolutionary.
Yeah.
I mean, WWF had done it a couple times at like a Mania entrance,
right.
But to have it for a lot of his entrances at that time, you're right. I'm sorry to go ahead and continue.
No, that's fine.
Right, it is iconic. It is iconic.
Yeah, just between that and just waylaying an entire a gang of guys with the baseball bat, and then just the whole crow thing, and then when you're that age and you see that movie, it could be so kind of like a Dark Knight, the Joker. It's like that influential back in the day.
You're absolutely right. You're right. That's a great way to look at it. I've never looked at it that way before.
You mentioned Kane, and I think that's we don't hear his name come up nearly as often as we should. Were you in it from the beginning? Were you watching that Bad Blood when he came out and tore the cell door open?
Yeah, I feel like I was in it pretty ground floor with Kane because the match that really hooked me on him was when he destroyed Vader and took Vader out, because that was my guy before Kane. So that, it really was the passing of the torch, the big signal to me that he's the new monster. And it was really exciting to be in, at the beginning of that as a child watching. It's you can't really recreate that no matter how long you go on watching. You can't recreate that first time you're really, really hooked into it. That first guy that really captured your imagination, and Kane definitely did that for me.
Big Picture, you said a name there that I think enough people don't recognize, or he doesn't get enough love, and it's Vader.
Sure.
For a guy that was that size.
Yeah, you don't see that type. I can't think of a comparable performer right now. Maybe a Bronson, and maybe a
Bronson Reed.
Yeah, maybe the Bronson Reed. Maybe I can't remember what's the Steiner, the young Steiner's name. Yeah, those guys are kind of in that mold where they're just, you don't even believe how big and how fast they are. But as far as just being that really scary, I wouldn't mess with this guy in an alley, in a bar, and then having that real sports credential that he did coming from football. Yeah, I just incomparable, absolutely.
And also made a name for himself in Japan. They loved him in Japan just because how physical and how much of a badass he was.
Yeah. Yeah, who else has had their eyeball knocked out of their head for the sake of entertainment?
Exactly. I'm glad you brought it up because that's when you say Vader, I immediately think of his mask being kind of crooked and his eyeball just.
Ugh.
I think of that's the first thing that comes to mind when I think of it. Man, he was amazing, and say that not he was, he was still with us, but just say if he was in this generation, just how much fun he would be. Like a Vader Kevin Owens match is the
He'd
first.
be such a special guy to bring out. Yeah, if they had that kind of type, it'd be so interesting to see all the different mixed with the new style. What would come out of that? That'd be fantastic. Yeah. But
I still think Vader'd be able to get over. I still think the crowd would be attracted to his kind of physicality. So I don't think he gets enough love, and I'm glad you brought him up.
Yeah, well, hopefully we see another Vader type, if there is such a thing anymore.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, it's a hard type to copy. It really is.
So we're talking about your early love of pro wrestling. We've mentioned Sting, Vader, Kane. I want to ask you, is there a crystallizing moment when you're young, you're watching the Attitude Era, that you absolutely clicked in your head and said, I got to do this?
The one match where I can remember really getting turned on to wrestling in a different way, on a different wavelength, and you guys will probably know, I can't remember the specific, if it was a pay-per-view. It was Savio Vega versus Stone Cold, and it was a Caribbean strap match. I just remember that match on the whole show, just something about it, like you could tell those guys were working harder, that they wanted it more, that I really connected with that on another level. Like, oh, there's human beings in here trying to kick ass at doing this. And that was the first time, like, yeah, wow, like a holy crap moment for me. That's probably that was a flip the switch moment for me, absolutely.
Was that the one they had to do twice? Was that at In Your House Beware of Dog, where the power went out and they had to redo it?
That might be it.
It was. As soon as the big picture, he's joining us here on Card Subject Change podcast by the fan for the fan. As soon as big picture said Savio Vega, Stone Cold Steve Austin Caribbean strap match, yep, that's the match they did twice. That was Beware of Dog 2.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're right, CZ. That's the match where the lights went out, correct? Power went out.
Yeah. I mean, don't call me a wrestling historian by any means, but sometimes I get things right. Sometimes I know things. Talk about you mentioned, writing the number down for Iron Spirit Pro for training in Iowa here. What was your training like? What kind of regiment did you go through when you first got into the training of the business?
Training was getting up there every Saturday and just laying a real solid fundamental, just putting the foundation down before you don't get ahead of yourself and push yourself comfortably at your own pace. I was so happy, looking back, that I ended up there, because I don't know what would have became of me anywhere else, because just the specific attention to what I needed, to when I needed it, to jump ahead in my pro wrestling knowledge when I was ready. I don't know where else I would have got that, but Impact Pro Wrestling, and specifically with Travis Shillington, TS Aggressor, up there. So yeah, I really lucked out, I feel like. I just thought it was just real solid fundamentals, and not no sadistic beating people up for no reason.
And at the time, there weren't a whole lot of options here, especially in Iowa, for where to get trained. Black and Brave.
It was that or Atlanta for me. And Atlanta seemed a bit much. That seemed like a scary thing.
In your training, when you first got into it, what was the biggest obstacle for you? What was the hardest thing for you to get over, to get, to where, what was the hardest thing you faced?
Just making the transition to thinking in physical. I've always been a physical guy. I'm not a natural athlete. I'm not a well-seasoned guy in a locker room of any kind of sport or anything, but always big, always physical. I like to sweat. I like to move around. Pairing that with actually thinking and having a motivation and a direction for all of this stuff and putting it into a cohesive body of work that someone can enjoy as a single piece. That was definitely, I mean, that is the challenge of pro wrestling, but I maybe on a more basic level, just adapting to the specific physical requirements of pro wrestling. It's absolutely unique and unrecreatable in anything else. You have to train for pro wrestling to be a pro wrestler. You can't move laterally into it.
No, absolutely. What was your experience like getting in the ring for the first time for your first official match?
I remember being in gorilla position in between the two curtains and going, I can't even believe they're gonna let me do this. This is this is on them. However this goes, this is on someone else. But I was put in such a great position to be comfortable and to succeed and to get great experience from the outset. Yeah.
You're standing there in gorilla. I mean, how many steps through that curtain? And did you realize, like, okay, I'm out here now, and this is it. No turning back, right?
Yeah, it's almost a magical barrier between that curtain and out of it. You do, at least for me, it's another flip the switch kind of thing where I'm someone else. I'm someone else right now for the next 15, 20, 25 minutes. I'm an entirely different, someone ready to go to war, someone ready to, sacrifice, someone ready to entertain, someone ready to be the hero, the fool, whatever you need me to be. But it's almost magical that just a little thin barrier, whatever it is, you could be scared shitless, excuse my language, but boom, you're out of there. That has got to disappear or else you're going to fail. But it always has. It disappears. It's exciting. It's the thrill. There's nothing like that time in the ring. There's nothing like it in the entire world.
That kind of reminds me of
joined by the big picture here on the Card Subject to Change podcast. Sorry to step on you there, CZ, but I got a question I've never asked any other guest before, and I want to ask you because everybody looks at wrestling differently, and what I may think is good wrestling, you may not like, and what you may love, I may be indifferent about. But if you were going to show someone a match of what you believe pro wrestling represents, what are you, and it's their first time ever watching wrestling, what are you going to have them watch, and why?
So tough. It's so tough. If I've already got the person sitting there, I might have to lock them up and make them watch 3 or 4.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I want to hear answers. But I asked this question because I love to hear what other people think or believe is a great match. I really do. As wrestling fans, I really want to pick other people's brains to what they believe is good, and I want to go watch it if I haven't seen it. How can I have an opinion on it if I haven't seen it? So it's a way for me. I'm really asking you a question to fill time here, and we're having a great conversation, but I'm also getting from it because you might say a match or two I've never seen, and now I got something to go watch.
I don't think I have any out of the ordinary off the list, but just picking one to represent all the different flavors of pro wrestling. If I was trying to show somebody, hey, look what happens when an entire arena gets completely hooked into every single second of the match, I would show them Rock versus Hogan at WrestleMania,
Yep.
If I wanted to show them, hey, this is how freaking hard people can hit each other, I might go find some old I might find some Jushin Liger stuff. I might pull out some Japan stuff, high flyer stuff. It's impossible to pick one, I do think. But if I had to do a short list of greatest matches ever, I got to show you
what you would want or what you believe represents pro wrestling and you would want to show somebody.
Damn, that's so hard.
I'm sorry.
No, that's good. It's a good question.
I seriously just thought of it. I'm so sorry.
No, I think it's a great question. I'm sorry I don't have a more definitive answer, but I'll be thinking about that one probably more later.
Well, yeah, and wrestling is such a buffet of different things. Like there is something out there for everyone who wants to watch. I wouldn't be able to narrow it. I could think of a few matches that I would show, but I wouldn't be able to narrow it down to just one.
Yeah.
I think close to the top of my list, but this is just throwing an example, would be Brett and Bret and Stone Cold at WrestleMania.
That'd be a good one. That'd be a great one for the storytelling, physicality, entertainment. That is a good. That's my answer now. That's how good of an answer that is.
And CZ knew I was going to say that. He had to be a jerk because he knew I was going that way. I'm giving you crap, CZ, because I was seriously going to say that match there had the fans turn on. The double turn happened right then and there. And
the picturesque ending, the perfect just.
If there's ever, I don't read so much anymore into who wins the match. I really have interest in who loses and what happens to them next. Right. That to me as a wrestling fan is something like I've acquired. Like it's an acquired taste, but it's kind of fun to watch wrestling that way because Stone Cold losing that night was the greatest thing that ever happened to him.
Right.
And then it was no looking back after that. So yeah, that's definitely a match I would show. You know what? I'm going to throw this one out, and it's a pretty obvious one just because from start to finish, I love wrestling. I love the big production value of it and how it's presented and the graphics and stuff and just the carnage. King of the Ring 98, Mankind Undertaker, right? Everybody knows where they were when they watched that Hell in a Cell match. Everybody remembers that initial feeling like, oh my God, like everybody thought he was dead. That was an unbelievable match. I think that unites a lot of people, and I would show somebody that.
Depending on who it was, I would maybe show that. I probably wouldn't show that to most girls if I were trying to get them into wrestling. I know my girlfriend has a hard time with some of the hardcore stuff.
What kind of if I can talk, let me see if I can string a sentence together. What are you gravitating towards nowadays? What grabs your attention in today's wrestling world?
I'm guilty of not watching a ton of new stuff.
And that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah. I watch just all the old DVDs I have, YouTube. WWE throws a lot of their stuff up there now. So I just, whatever they put out randomly, I'll watch that. I like to binge watch on the stream. I'll wait a while and then catch up every so often. Because I love how the stories play out, and they're doing that the best they've ever done. As far as long-term storytelling and episodically, and just
oh my goodness,
developing
it's something else.
So I'm probably guilty of maybe not watching on the Mondays as often as I should. But let's see, who would I gravitate to? Rhea Ripley, she's awesome. Most of all the girls right now are probably the ones I actually end up watching more and paying attention to more. Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley, Raquel Rodriguez are like probably 3 of my top 5 ones that I actually stop, the channel when they're on. Whereas the streaming now is on Netflix. So
yeah.
Without a doubt, those are some good names to toss out there. Having been doing this for almost 18 years, I kind of like to go back and ask things with more veterans. Is there a favorite place or a favorite opponent that you just click with, you just gel with, and you love going there and anytime?
I loved wrestling at Forte in Des Moines. We had a great little spot downtown. It was just perfect aura, perfect just background to the action with big windows, and you can see everyone going by. There's a park a few blocks back, just a nice area, good place, great fans, great building. The staff was amazing. Just a really great era for me personally, wrestling at Forte in Des Moines. It just one of many great, amazing places. So some of the best places I've wrestled are no place at all in the middle of an intersection. Dallas Center for Ragbri, getting 1,100, 1,200, 1,500 people just packed, street to street to street. Like you can't see past the people in the middle. That's a good feeling too. Those are a couple.
Absolutely. Well, gentlemen, I think this is a good place to pause, take a time out, because we always have to pay our dues to our fellow network shows. If you missed it on the early show of Card Subject to Change, we are going to rebroadcast the Moment of Focus just in case you missed it, so you get a second shot at that. But we are talking with the big picture, the Absolute Pro Wrestling open weight champion here on Card Subject to Change, the podcast by the fan, for the fan, powered by Lopez Pizza, built by Durham Remodeling, colored by Ryan Allison Tattoo, and of course, protected by Jared Zook, Country Financial. And Picture knows that I've got to take a breath after all that because that's a lot to spit out.
I'm also powered by pizza.
You need to come to the Quad Cities and try Lopez. You're going to love it.
I'm in.
All right, we are going to take a quick break. We will be right back after this.
For frequency's sake, has you covered on all things sports. From the squared circle to the hardwood and the gridiron to the speedway, we've got something for everyone. Walk down the aisle with the boys from Card Subject to Change every Sunday as they take a deep dive into everything pro wrestling. Head on over to the hardwood with Doug Green and Watching the W each week for all the news from the WNBA. Want more insight from Pit Row? Check out the Green, White, and Checkered podcast where they give their insight on everything happening on and off the track. Need your gambling fix? We've got you there. Dan Hancock and Gotham Gambling will help you cover the spread with the Golden Ticket Show. Football more your style? Explore the waters of NFL DFS with DFS Deep Dive with Brian Craighead and Jordan Kernan each week. More into the science portion of the game? The Professor John Bush and Dennis Michelson take you into their science lab and dissect your week in the data lab. Need to know who to start last minute? The network's flagship show, For Fantasy's Sake, is here in a pinch. The fellas come to you live every football Sunday from 10 to 11:30 Central with the week's best DFS, gambling, and lineup advice. And wrap up your Sundays with Joe Winkle and Nick Brinks as they come to you live with educated ignorance looking at all the day's action. Not enough football on Sunday? Not a problem. Kick your feet up at lunch on Monday and slip into the football lounge with Mark and Dan while they look at the week that was in news, notes, and more. For frequency's sake, you know what we mean.
Welcome back to the
show. Welcome back to Card Subject to Change, the podcast by the fan, for the fan. Of course, I'm your host, never wrong, Nick Bull, joined by my tag team partner, the Wizard CZ. We are talking with Absolute Pro Wrestling's open weight champion, the Big Picture, this week. This is our double shot weekend. We were recorded earlier today, but this one we're doing live here. This would be our normal spot, but we had time to move her up, and we're going to take a look at the Big Picture with the Big Picture in a bit. But first, if you missed our earlier episode, have no fear. JT Energy is here with this week's episode of Moment of Focus.
Welcome to a Moment of Focus with the feline phenom, JT Energy. The boys at the Card Subject to Change podcast, double Sunday. 2. Are you going to see me once? Maybe. Are you going to see me twice? Maybe. Regardless, one moment of focus today. And that, my friends, is focus on what you have now. Because you will not understand the differences in your life that will happen when something is gone. Whether it be something so small like TikTok, which provides all kinds of feelings to so many people across the world. When you take those away, man, kind of hurts. Or when an independent wrestling promotion runs your town, and the day that they stop running, man, those memories, they're hard to let go. So appreciate what you have now, because we really don't know what we have until it's gone. This, my friends, has been a moment of focus with the feline phenom, JT Energy.
Thank you again, JT. Always love having a moment to focus with his wisdom and insight. We are here on the Card Subject to Change podcast, the podcast by the fans, for the fans. We are talking with the Absolute Pro Wrestling open weight champion, the Big Picture. And Picture, you got to bring that title up because that's the first thing I'm going to ask you about is what it means to you to hold that championship.
It means that hard work is rewarded. It means that my vision is solid, like it has been the entire time I've been in the squared circle. It means that I've got a good support group. I've aligned myself with the right group of guys. It means things are going right. It means things are going my way. It means things are looking up, and it means a bright future for not only me, but for this championship and other championships in Absolute Pro Wrestling. Dare I predict?
And we want to talk all about Absolute Pro Wrestling now because they've got a big show coming up Saturday, and that's one of the main reasons we brought you on today, not only to get to know you, but to talk about the Winter Brawl Classic, because I really don't want Jason Prentice beating on my door to beat me up for not talking about it. So you have an opponent, someone we've had on the show before, someone who considers himself more than a conqueror, Mr. Alvin Falcone.
Alvin!
I think that answers the first question. What are your thoughts on Mr. Falcone, and how are you preparing for the match?
Freaking relentless. That's the first thing I'll say. He's young. He wants it. He knows what he's made of. He knows what is ahead of him in pro wrestling, I think, and I do think it's a lot of success. I'm not going to knock him in any way, but it's just not the time for him to be this champion right now. He's going to be disappointed. I love to be the guy to disappoint people. He's got a lot going for him, but I've got a little bit more yet. You know, maybe when I'm rolling down the hill and he's still climbing up the hill, he'll take a belt off him, but it's not going to happen Saturday.
Okay.
Not only is your match with Falcone taking place, you know, that in of itself can sell the show. What else is taking place on the show? Why should someone come out and watch Absolute Pro Wrestling?
Because on Saturday night at the Cedar Valley Convention Center,
We've been to beautiful place to go watch. Great place to go watch a wrestling show.
It's establishing itself as one of my favorite places, as soon as establishing a track record of being another place that's a beautiful area, beautiful fan base, really intense, really connected, really plugged in. But you're gonna have to remind me the question real quick.
What's the big draw for Saturday's show other than your title match?
You're gonna get to see what almost every single man in Absolute Pro Wrestling is made of, because each and every one of us is taking all of ourselves and putting it into a 30-man Royal Rumble style Battle Royal Winter Classic. It's going to be a classic because we all want a shot at this damn belt. None of us are okay with sitting around watching Aaron Von Baron be the Absolute Pro Wrestling Heavyweight Champion. I can tell you, you've got a bunch of sharks in a little tank, and that is why I would show up right there to see what every single one of these 30 men is made of. And also Daniel Mott. He's probably going to kill us all.
Let me ask you this. When you enter like a Royal Rumble style match, a Battle Royal, does your mindset change from when you're in a single match? What do you do to prepare for something like that?
It has to. You have to go, for me at least, especially being a larger guy, you have to go into conservation mode because you can't get targeted. If I start chucking some of these tiny dudes, the rest of the tiny dudes go, look at the guy chucking all of us, and now I've got a bunch of little ankle biters, So you got a whole different look on strategy, tactics I would never employ in a singles match, tactics I would never employ in a tag match or even a 3-on-3. Very, very unique set of circumstances in a battle royal with 30 men in it, over the top. Yeah, a whole different ball game.
And I always think when you got a Rumble, that's a great selling point. That'd be why I'd want to go see a show, because so much can happen. And what's great is you're going to have your funny spots in it. You're going to have your physicality in it. You're going to get everything all in one. And I just feel like it's hard. It's hard for me to miss a good battle royal.
It's hard for me to miss a good battle royal. I agree. I love being there. It's great. In a singles match, you smack a guy, he goes down, you got nobody else to smack. In a battle royal, bam, there's another guy, bam. Oh, it's so great. I can't wait. You're getting me excited.
You mentioned current Absolute Pro champion Aaron Von Baron, and last year Nick and I were both, I believe, at the Rumble last year, watching it at the Winter Brawl Classic, and he swerved everybody by faking an injury, or at least maybe not faking it, but looking like he was injured and done for the night, and then coming back to win the whole thing. And now he's the champion.
Who do you think taught him that? Yeah. I've known this guy since way back in the day. We've been tag team champions. It was a swerve, but I wasn't surprised, and I don't think I think the whole world was surprised, and it's an absolute master stroke, and that's why Aaron Von Baron has that belt right now. And yeah, a lot of guys feel a lot of different ways about that. A lot of guys are going to want to be the guys to rectify what they see as a mistake of a situation.
And he's been on a tear in last man standing matches, cage matches. It's been a hell of a ride for him. Other than yourself, who do you see coming out of? Who would your pick for the classic be to come out and win and possibly take the belt off of Aaron?
If there's a building with Ethan Everhart in it, don't bet on anybody else.
Ooh.
That's what I'm saying. If I'm not there.
You heard it here first. If the big picture's not there, this is like insider info here. Insider trading. Go out and buy stock right now.
Watch his music hit. Watch him come out. Tell me somebody else is hitting harder, is running harder, is working harder than anybody right now.
I agree with you. Ethan Everhart has a stranglehold in a good way on the crowd. They love him.
Yeah,
fans absolutely love him, and they embrace him. And sometimes that's what it needs to take you to the next level. And when it comes to that department, his cup runneth over.
Yeah, nothing but tools, and he's still developing.
Well, for
he's
sure,
he's another guy just like Alvin. They know exactly what they've got in them, and if it wasn't for guys like me, they might have a little more. But you've got to knock me off the mountain. But they are climbing. They're climbing it. They're near the damn top.
And he is someone who really has surprised me. We've had him on the show, not in a full interview segment, but when we did one of our pre-show shows in Waterloo at the Cedar Valley Sportsplex, he was very quiet. He was very subdued when we had him on, and then he just comes out with this intensity that I look at the interview we had with him, as brief as it was, and then I look at him coming out and I'm like, where the hell did this come from?
Yeah. The quiet ones are always the ones you got to watch. That's always the quiet ones. That's focus. That's no time in his mind for anything that's not essential to the task. I've seen that look. I've had that look. I know that look. A lot of us do. Ethan is embodying that look right now. But that's enough about putting anyone over with me. That's enough.
No, absolutely. It's time to put the big picture over, and it leads to my next question and the next thought where I want to go with this is, you talk about the show coming up with Absolute Pro Wrestling. Where else can we see the big picture coming up? And talk about your socials. Throw those out there so if the fans listening want to follow.
None. I don't have any. I just see if you look up the big picture on Facebook, I think it's me that comes up.
Okay.
Otherwise, no, I'm pretty light on the social media. Right now, I am pretty focused on Absolute Pro Wrestling. I know a lot of guys in a lot of different places. If there's ever a loud enough murmur that, hey, we want the big picture, who knows? I'll never, I don't say no a lot. I'm keen on having new experiences and trying new things and challenging myself. So I'm not going to, put any kind of a box on 2025, but just to be specific about what I know I'm doing, it's Absolute Pro right now.
And Absolute Pro, I'm going to ask you this. I tend to ask this to a lot of people who've been around for a while. There are a lot of young talents in Absolute Pro coming up and making a name for themselves. What advice, having been in the business for almost 18 years, do you give to these young kids as they're coming into their own?
I'm not giving them any advice. They're doing well enough on their own. Figure it out like I had to. These kids are doing fine. They'll get where they need to be with the hard work they're already putting in. I'm not going to give them a single leg up.
That's fair. That's understandable. Especially someone like Alvin Falcone, who's challenging you for the belt on Saturday.
The thing I say might be the thing that destroys me. You can't give these guys an edge, not even a little bit. That's the Shark Tank I was talking about earlier. That's the environment right now. Nothing but talent. When
you're not doing wrestling type stuff, What are your hobbies? What do you do?
I like to read. That's about it. I like to read video games. Right now, I've got a 1.5-year-old, so pretty, full on dad mode.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
Taking care of all the crazy females at the house is a full-time task in and of itself. Just living life right now. I'm just kind of, everything's going great. I'm happy as I've ever been, and that's kind of, the situation right now. Kicking ass in life, kicking ass in wrestling, getting to do great, awesome podcasts every now and again.
Hey, there you go.
And we appreciate you coming on and being a part of this here. I do want to give you a word of warning. If you see Nick at a show and you're still holding that title, which you will be, I'm sure, if you see Nick at a show, keep that belt away from him. He likes shiny things. We have picture proof of him holding the Absolute Pro the big title that AVB is holding right now. He will store it and he will take it and he will hide it from you just so he can take it home.
I love those belts. That's a good looking. I wanted to tell you earlier. That is a good looking
handsome belt. It's a handsome belt. I like,
beautiful. It doesn't look tacky in any way. It kind of looks like a throwback, but it's got a modern twist. It's very well done.
Yeah, I feel like it represents the prestige in which I carry it well.
For sure.
And I love being the Absolute Pro Wrestling openweight champion. But like I said, I'm eager, and 29 other guys are super eager to get a shot of that heavyweight championship. You want to talk about another beautiful belt, another prestigious belt, another thing people are really eager. Absolute Pro Wrestling heavyweight championship.
Yes, and a lot of good talent vying for that. And Picture, I want to wish you the best of luck in the Classic. I want to wish you the best of luck against Alvin Falcone.
Alvin!
Like I said, I may see you there on Saturday. I'm not sure what my plans are yet, but for us here at Card Subject to Change, I got to thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate talking to you here, and anytime you want to come talk pro wrestling.
Absolutely. Anytime I'm down. Thank you guys for having me. It was a blast.
Absolutely.
Love having you.
Thank you. I hope I didn't ramble too much.
No,
not at all.
All right.
Well, that is going to put a wrap on this second edition of Card Subject to Change for this double booked Sunday. I am the Wizard CZ, and for my partner, Never Wrong Nick Bull, we are the podcast by the fan, for the fan, powered by Lopez Pizza, built by Durham Remodeling, colored by Ryan Allison Tattoo, and protected by Jared Zook, Country Financial. We will see you midweek for our short form show, The Kickout, and then we'll see you right back here next week on Card Subject to Change.
This has been a For Frequency's Sake Podcast Network production. For more great content, subscribe to For Frequency's Sake on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter.